Let's recap your last 2D design class. First off, I reviewed all the new announcements I posted on Slate since our last class. It's a lot, but I encourage you to at least skim through it. If you need support, tutoring, counseling, skills to help you manage your workload, or you just want to connect with your peers socially, there's a lot there. We reviewed your Exercise 1 submissions. I emphasized the importance of understanding the project brief and formatting your final PDF correctly. Now, we also reviewed the progress you made in your scientific illustrations. We discussed the importance of getting proportions right and applying a wide range of tone to achieve a realistic rendering. My favorite question was about which shading technique I recommended. My answer, the fastest one. You need to value your time and go with the methods that get the job done fast. Whatever your shading technique, I recommend starting with a hard pencil and covering the entire body of the animal with a light tone. Then block in the details of darker tone, and then you can fuss over texture and details. I'll have more advice and examples of techniques in a few minutes, a little bit later in this video. We looked at the history of drawing, starting with an ideal goal imposed upon Renaissance artists to reproduce the 3D world in 2D drawings. This goal for realism is called verisimilitude. They had a focused awareness of anatomy, how tone describes form, and how details and texture create a heightened sense of realism. They also developed a keen understanding of linear perspective in the 2D drawing space. Renaissance artists used drawing tools only to reproduce reality, not for artistic expression. Anyway, fast forward to the 20th century, and the focus of drawing had shifted to personal expression. There was no longer an ideal that forced artists to submit to an authority of standards. Artists could reproduce reality if they wanted to, but they didn't have to. So they were free to explore their own personal creative vision. And more importantly, this new breed of artists were accepted into mainstream and legitimate galleries so they could sell their art. So what does this have to do with Project 2? Well, your scientific illustration is exactly the sort of thing that would have fit right in with Renaissance ideals. Your deconstruction process mirrors the process that changed the world of art through 4 centuries. Your animal icon and letterform mashup bring us to our current digital age. Next, we looked at what deconstruction means and how we can apply it to your animal drawings. We do this through a deliberate process of abstraction, which means we start with the actual object and we remove extraneous details and really emphasize distinguishing features. In other words, get rid of details that don't matter and exaggerate the feature of your animal that defines it. Can you still see the grasshopper? Did I abstract too far? I encourage you to go too far in your own abstraction because then you can go back a step and find the most basic and essential representation of your animal icon. So, how do you know you abstracted too far? Ask the people you know if they recognize what you've done. I mean, what is this image, for example? Some people in class saw this as a penguin, or a face, or the body of a person, or a bomb. Does adding details help? Some people eventually saw the image of a geisha from this 1981 poster designed by Iko Tanaka, but many people still don't think this is enough. It's personal. So the entire class participated in some drawing exercises. Through a series of drawings, you drew your animal over and over with different time constraints, sometimes without looking at your drawing and other times not looking at your reference image. If you missed the class or want to explore more of these drawings on your own, here is the list. So, what is the point of the drawing exercises? For one thing, it helps you be less precious with your drawings. and let you feel free to be messy. Process work is about a large amount of experimentation, trying new things with no idea what the outcome is. Process is about variety and quantity rather than focused quality. After you complete the drawing exercises, look at the drawings and compare them. You'll notice that there are features on your animal that are consistent and repeat. There are also features that you have left out. This is useful for simplifying your animal. The drawing exercises also prove to yourself that you can draw quickly and you can produce a large volume of process work in a very short amount of time. Yes, these drawings are now part of your process work for Project 2. The drawing examples you've been looking at were part of a past student's process work. We looked at all the variety of drawings in their process work and how the student deconstructed, simplified, and abstracted their animal. I mentioned that it's a good idea to push yourself to go beyond realistic renderings and also go beyond silhouettes. It's okay to explore realism and silhouettes in your process work, but it's limiting and it doesn't show imagination. We looked at another student's work. The scientific illustration wasn't as refined or developed. The key to a refined, realistic drawing is getting the proportions right, building realistic tone so that it feels like a 3D object with real form. Don't rely on outlines, instead approach your animal rendering with blocky shapes of tone to start with, and then add texture and details as a finishing touch. If we didn't have time to watch this video in your last class, I highly recommend you do. Ian Roberts reduces objects and elements to crude blocks of tone. The direction of his pencil lines follow the planes. So, the things that are flat on the ground are defined with horizontal lines, and vertical shapes, like trees, are made with vertical lines. This very same technique can be applied to your animal rendering. Are you using a color photograph? I definitely recommend converting it to grayscale. Convert it to grayscale so you can plainly see the correct tones and how each area of tone compares with the rest of the animal as a whole. When you convert to black and white, it's also easier to see that white is rare. Even with this dove photo, there may be more gray tone than you think. Let me just convert this to black and white. If you want your whites to be accurate, zoom in and put a white shape on top of your photo. Let me just do that now. And I'm going to compare it to the parts of the bird that look pretty white. But you can see, now the area that you thought was white has a proper context. And you can more accurately measure the tone of the light colors to make the tones in your drawing accurate as well. And you'll also notice that this reference photo has a very dark background, which contrasts with the dove and makes it stand out. Adding background tone may make your animal more prominent. All right, let's go back to the alligator. So while the alligator could use more work, this student demonstrates fearlessness in their process work. Let's go through that. I mean, look at the variety. There's a lot. And this is what I want you to do. Experiment. We have 3 more classes to experiment, so let your imagination go wild. Experiment with media, line weight, shapes, and whatever else you can think of. That pretty much wraps it up.